A triptych in Photoshop. One of the things that we want to be doing while we're going through the demo today is to have our handout. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I have my handout up and ready. The first thing that you need to do is to figure out what your document size is going to be for your triptych. So we're going to add a 1/2 inch all the way around and a 1/2 inch between each photograph. Do a sketch before you create your document. So if you have all vertical images, these would be your dimensions. So our height is already going to be 7 inches. And then we'll have a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch on either side. So top and bottom are 1/2 inch, which equals 8 inches. Our width gets a little bit tricky, so I like to write that out. So for our width, we've got 1, 2, 3 at 5 inches for our width right here. So that's 15. And then we have 1/2 inch on either side, that'll be 1 inch, and then 1/2 inch in between, so that's 2 inches. So we've got 15 inches plus 2 inches, which then equals 17. So if your images are all vertical, your dimensions for your new document are going to be 8 by 17. The same thing's going to happen with horizontal images, and then if you're mixing and matching horizontal and vertical images, you'll notice that there are a couple different ways that we can organize that within the document. So keep this up. What we're going to do is we're going to figure out our document size. We just decided that was going to be 8 by 17. And now I'm going to walk you through how to make that new document. So we're going to go up to File and go down to New. And Adobe tries to be helpful and give you kind of all these options. We don't really need to pay attention to that. All we're going to pay attention to right here is our preset details. So one thing that you need to make sure is that you name it last name. And then we're naming this project to Truce. And please make sure that you're using an underscore between each one of your kind of words that you're working with. A critical thing that we need to change is pixels. We need to change it to inches. And right now you can see my orientation is landscape, which suits us just fine for what we're doing. So remember our width, and we'll go back and double check. Our width is going to be 17. And then let's double check our height. Our height is going to be 8. Another critical thing that you need to change is your resolution needs to change to 100. Everything else, all these other options, they look just fine. We'll go ahead and say create. And now you have a nice new blank document for what you're going to work with them. The next step that we're going to take a look at, so we've gone through and we've made our new document, is going to be cropping our images. And here is step by step what you need to do to crop your images. So I'm going to go to one of my demo files and we are going to talk about how to crop each one. The crop tool is about 1/3 of the way down, so if I click on the crop tool, I'm not going to do anything right now. You'll notice that the bounding box did come up, so that means that I'm actually in the crop tool. And I'm not going to touch anything except for to go right here for where my options are for my crop tool. Now, if for some reason that you can't see the options that should be available to you in your crop tool, you can also go down and turn on options. So that'll kind of turn it on and off for you. So if you click, you'll notice that we can crop by ratios, but right now we just want to make it just the exact size that we want to work with. So I'm going to do width times height times resolution. And I'm working with a vertical image. So right now I know that my width is this area right here at the top. I want that to be 5 inches. And then my height right here, I want to make that 7 inches. And then I want to make sure that my resolution, my pixels per inch, are set to 100. And now, once all of those things are set, you'll notice that I can click and drag on the edges. So I can click and drag where I want to crop. Then, if you want to change where that crop is occurring in the image, you can click in the center of the image and you can drag around where you want that crop to be. Be careful. You notice I went outside of the image. That would add a white area. So I want to just kind of click and drag. And then when you're happy with it, there's two things you can do. You can either hit return on the keyboard, or just using your mouse right there in the middle, you can double click and that will crop it. You'll notice it'll probably make it quite a bit smaller because our document is pretty small that we're working with. So once I've cropped it, once I'm happy with that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to my new document. So I'm going to go up to select and say select all. I'm going to go to edit And since your document is probably going to be a Photoshop document with layers, you need to select copy merged. I haven't added a layer to this, so I'm just going to select copy, but all of you should select copy merged if you have layers. I'm going to copy it. And now I'm going to go up to my tabs, which is very much like a website. I'm going to find my blank document. And do make sure that you're not still in the crop tool. You'll notice sometimes if you come into a new document and you're still in the crop tool, I always like to go back over to my tool palette and go back up to the move tool. So this is kind of the default tool. So if something's happening weird, just go back up to that move tool and you should be okay. Now I'm going to go to edit, paste, and voila, look, there is our image, nice and happy. Now you might be wondering, do I eyeball this? How do I make this? You'll see some smart guides coming up, which are actually really helpful. But we're actually going to use the grid. So I'm going to go up to View, Show, and then turn on my grid. And your grid will be in 1 inch increments. So if I move this over, each one of these squares is an inch. So what I know that I need to do, and what I like to do, is I kind of like to line it up kind of in this corner over here. You'll notice that 2 of these blocks, each of these is 1/4 of an inch. 2 of these, that's 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. All right, I am pretty happy with that. So you'll do that for each one of your images. You'll open it, you'll crop it, you'll copy it, and then you'll paste it into your new document. Right now, I'm just going to do this quickly so you can see how to line them up. So right here, those 2 squares, that's 1/2 inch. And these 2 squares, that's 1/2 inch. So does everyone see how I've got 1/2 inch all the way around? If you want to turn your grid off so that you can see what your image looks like, you can go back to View, go down to Show, and just turn that grid right off. And you can say, ah, that looks really pretty good. Just like our edited files, we're going to save 2 different versions of this. So I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to go to Save, and I'm going to save it as a Photoshop document. I want to make sure that my name looks good, so I want to make sure that I've got my last name, 2 trues, PSD, and I'll say Save. Oops, I've already got one version of this going, so I'm just going to make a copy of it. The Photoshop format options, just go ahead and say OK. And then what you need to upload for critique, and this is really important, we're going to go back to File once again and go down to Save As. And here, what we're going to do is we're going to save it as a JPEG. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to say Save as a JPEG. And once again, you'll notice that we've got the JPEG file marker, the name for it. It's set to a JPEG. We'll say Save. We'll say OK. And now we have our file all ready for critique to upload to Canvas.